I've said it before and I'll say it again. Nintendo makes some of the best games out there. However, there's something they're doing, or rather not doing, that I think is a missed opportunity. Okay, so maybe there's a lot of stuff, but the thing I'm talking about today is the lack of budget first-party games. But what are these budget games I speak of, and what do they have to do with the Switch's lineup? Without further ado, let's get started.
It's pizza time. Oh yeah, no money.
Hey there, I'm Carno. If there are two things we can be certain of, it's that even when the heat death of the universe comes for us all, Nintendo's games will be $60 and their online will be mediocre. Now, that second point aside, the way Nintendo prices their games has been the subject of many debates. A 4-year-old game? Full price. A single port of a Wii game? Full price. A new franchise that Nintendo is trying to push to competitive players? A port of a last-gen spin-off? A bundle of 3 ROMs dumped onto a cartridge. Full price, and full price. Now, I'm not here to debate whether any particular game is worth the full cost because that's a whole nother can of worms. What I do want to point out is the lack of budget games produced by the Big N. Now, before going any further, I should probably explain what I define as a budget game. See, I consider games to be in 3 tiers of sorts. You got your small, low-cost games, you have your medium-sized games, or AA games, and then you have your full-fledged games that catch the entire industry's attention, your AAA games. Now, of course, classifying each type of game comes down to a case-by-case basis, but why would these middle-of-the-road games be appealing? Well, for starters, it allows games to reach a broader demographic. Let's face it, $60 is nothing to sneeze at. As such, customers often have to pick and choose which games to try. As much as the internet might make you believe it, most people don't buy every big release. I usually find the average person buys about 3 to 4 AAA games a year, or maybe 5 to 6. And as such, they usually stick with franchises that they're already familiar with, or have massive critical praise behind them. And that's not to mention competition from other consoles. And remember, I'm talking about full-priced AAA games. What this system leaves you with are franchises that will always be bestsellers like Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon, and then other franchises that are much more niche like Metroid and Pikmin. Yeah, sometimes the game will break this cycle and go on to push its franchise up higher. Splatoon was a completely new franchise that did extremely well, and now it's one of Nintendo's official top franchises. But many times, this isn't the case. However, what if they added more $40 games into the mix? There are 2 methods they could use. They could make new games and classify them as AA, or they could remaster old franchises that didn't sell as well and repackage them at a budget price. Imagine if Metroid Prime Trilogy HD or Pikmin 1 and 2 were sold for $40. Suddenly, those games would become appealing to a lot more people. I don't necessarily know if this would double sales or anything, but it would probably give them the extra push these franchises need. The story writes itself. Bob has never played a Metroid game, but everyone's hyped up Prime 4, which is about to come out. But he's not sure if he'll like it, so he buys a $40 trilogy first. He can then decide whether or not he likes a franchise before fully committing. And I'll admit, there are plenty of Nintendo franchises I'd try if they were closer to $40. Now, I can see 2 objections here. First, Nintendo games do go on sale every now and then. It isn't uncommon to see them go pre-owned for around $45 or so either. So isn't that fulfilling the purpose I was talking about? Well, yes and no. It is true that a lot of people will be more likely to buy something if it's at a discount. That's simple economics. But to the average consumer, they aren't really on the lookout for these sales. What usually happens is they see the new game they're looking at for full price, decide to pass for now, and just like that, the game is doomed to forever be on their interested list. Like, let me say this again, Pikmin is a great franchise, but how many newcomers do you think saw this niche franchise they knew next to nothing about, and passed on it for something like Mario instead? Second, what about Nintendo Selects? Aren't they exactly what you're talking about? Well, again, yes and no. Don't get me wrong, they're fantastic. I've actually gone into a few different franchises because they were a select on the 3DS. They should totally bring the program back to the Switch. The thing is, sales matter now, not years down the line. Maybe there'll be a spike if a game gets slashed at $20, but which do you think sends a more encouraging message to make a sequel? This game sold 5 million copies in the first 6 months, or this game sold 5 million copies over the Switch's life? Now luckily, there is a silver lining. Recently, Nintendo announced a small game called Game Builder Garage, which lets you make your own creations and share them with friends and family. Sounds like a fun little experiment, right? Well, what if I told you they priced it at $30? That's right, against all odds, Nintendo has released a first-party game at a budget price. And I'm sure there are plenty of people right now who are intrigued and are eyeing that half price. Of course, we'll just have to see how the game does, but I think this thing has potential. Miitopia is kind of an example too. It's priced at $50 when the original was at $40, so I'm not really sure if that one counts. But I suppose if one wanted to look at it that way, I could see an argument being made. So besides new franchises, what other games do I think should get the AA treatment? First, Metroid. It's no secret that the series has never sold particularly well, at least in comparison to Nintendo's other franchises. So here's an idea to drum up interest. Release 2 Metroid ports at $40, Prime Trilogy and Samus Returns. You now have 2 flavors of the Metroid formula that people can try out before Prime 4 releases. And I'm not saying that Prime 4 should be budget priced or any brand new games. But in this particular circumstance, I believe these games would allow people to ease themselves into the series and potentially become returning fans. Next, Star Fox. Let's face it, it's been a while since the last critically praised game, and a lot of people want to know what all the fuss is about, including me. But if Nintendo decides to make a full-priced game now without any other games besides the Super Nintendo versions out, a lot of people may be hesitant to take the plunge. But picture this, a new game that simply follows the 64 formula while adding modern elements and a new story. And it's releasing for $40. It doesn't even need to have multiplayer, just give the people this game and they'll be interested. Or you know what, just straight up remake 64 again. I'm sure lots of people would still buy it at budget price, I know I would. This one is admittedly a bit more far-fetched, but nothing is impossible. How about Pikmin? For as many fans of this franchise as there are, it's still niche. In fact, the Switch port sold less than 3 million copies. Granted, it hasn't been a full year since it was released, but what do you think Nintendo got from this message? It did fine. No need to hurry up with the sequel though. And why did this game sell 3 million units? Because only so many people were willing to buy into a franchise they hadn't tried before. I hold the opinion that the port should have been $40 from the start, but I think there's still potential for this series. Like for example, what if they remade Pikmin 1 in HD, then sold it for $40? That would be much more enticing, and although I'm sure many people tried the demo for 3, that's still asking quite a bit from people to buy the game at full price. As someone who enjoyed 1 and 2, I think a lot of people would like them if they had the chance to try them on modern hardware. And one more thing too, it's not like 3 million units is a small amount, but compared to other franchises, it's not that much. Okay, so all the franchises I mentioned until now were larger budget, but what about their smaller ones? Well, here's one game that comes to mind, WarioWare. This game has a very loyal following, and even though it's not too popular, the games are known to be pretty good. And with the Joy-Cons, it'd be the perfect opportunity for a new entry. Admittedly, I've only tried a demo for this franchise on the 3DS, but this would still be another series I'd like to see come over. Now, those are just 4 examples I could think of, but there are certainly more, whether it be dead franchises like F-Zero or new one-off ideas like ARMS. Now, am I saying that every franchise needs a new title? Certainly not. Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon will sell well no matter what. Same with Smash Bros, Animal Crossing, and most major spin-offs like Mario Kart, Party, and sports titles. After all, Nintendo isn't a charity. If they were to make these budget titles, it'd be an investment that they could expand these franchises, kinda like with Fire Emblem on the 3DS. In fact, that's a great example of a series where a budget title saved it all. The series hadn't done too well, and if Awakening didn't sell, Nintendo was going to shelve it. But it was released on a successful system at $40, and it actually did pretty well. Granted, one could argue that the 3DS was a portable system and $40 was the norm, but to that I say, so is the Switch. I see no reason why we can't get these types of games here too. But the big question is, now that we're in the second half of the system's life and most big series are accounted for, will they take this opportunity to revive old franchises or even create new ones? We can only wait and see. But with games like Game Builder Garage and Miitopia on the table, I'm beginning to get hopeful. I know, why not just wait for Mother 3 while I'm at it too? Anyway, until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.